We'll call the workshop budget meeting to order. And I guess we have some new information that's been prepared, and Manager Blease, if you want to run us through the changes that you've suggested here?
Sure. Before we get started, I do want to note Councilor Jarrett did phone me earlier and say he wasn't going to be here.
Okay.
So during the November 1st City Council workshop, the Council directed staff to come up with a budget that only raises taxes by $384,000 in 2017 over 2016. Council also directed staff to make wage adjustments for the non-union employees to adjust the pay scale so the midpoint of the scale would be 100% of average for similar positions in towns of population 6,000 to 10,000 across Maine. So based upon this direction, staff has made the changes requested by the Council. In order to have only $384,000 in new taxes from 2016 to 2017, we have increased revenues and cut expenses for a total of approximately $206,000. In order to accomplish this, the following adjustments to the budget are being proposed. The following CIP accounts would be impacted. $1,000 from general government computers, $500 from fleet vehicles, $1,000 from parking lot reserve, $1,000 from assessing reserve, $1,000 from the library building reserve, $1,000 from the fire equipment reserve, $500 from fire foam reserve, $500 from fire computer reserve, $1,000 from fire small equipment, $1,000 from the fire ambulance building reserve, $1,000 from ambulance small equipment reserve, $1,000 from police equipment reserve, $1,000 from police car reserve, $1,000 from police computer reserve, $1,000 from file digitization, $1,000 from LED streetlights, $1,000 from the Grimes Road Engineering, $1,000 from the Public Works Equipment Reserve, $1,000 from the Streets and Road Reconstruction, $500 from the Rec Center Improvements, $500 from the Rec Van Reserve, $1,000 from the Community Pool, $1,000 from the Park Improvement Reserve, $1,000 from the Rec Equipment Reserve, $500 from the Rec Lawnmower Reserve, $500 from Civic Beautification, $1,000 from the Collins Pond Rec Reserve, $100 from the Ski Trail Program, $500 from the Airport Reserve, $500 from the Downtown Infrastructure, $700 from the Biomass Boiler Debt, and $5,000 from the Compensated Absences. This totals $30,300. Staff feels that we cannot take more than the indicated amounts out of these CIP accounts as we look to the future, making sure the CIP accounts are funded at adequate levels. We are taking $1,784 out of the library health insurance line and $913 out of the library salaries line. Given where we're at in the recruitment process for a library director, I don't believe a new director would be in position until at least the second payroll in January. With that being the case, this is 1 month's health insurance cost and 1 week's salary. In Department 18, municipal buildings, we're taking $1,000 from the building maintenance and $1,000 from the boiler maintenance. In general governments, we're taking $2,000 from the legal fees line. In emergency management, we're taking $50 from the miscellaneous line. We're proposing to raise the fire rates by 3% rather than the 2% originally anticipated. That will increase revenues by $1,200. So all of these things, including the CIP amounts, add up to $38,247. We had originally requested to bring a full-time person back in the Public Works Department and get rid of the seasonal position. We're proposing to keep staffing in Public Works as the way it is currently. So we would keep the seasonal person and not add the full-time person back. That'll save approximately $40,000. We're proposing to cut 20 hours from the janitor position at the rec. This is one position, one full position. A building of this size and usage certainly requires more and needs more than 20 hours of janitorial work. So this amount adds up to $17,577. We're proposing to charge the housing department $25,000 in rent and administrative fees. This is $5 a square foot for 310 feet, which is their office space for each month. That comes to $18,600 per year. We're also proposing to charge them, or we're also charging them for some of the staff time for the finance director and city manager in the amount of $6,400. So this is new revenue to the city. These funds can either be paid to the city from their non-HUD operating reserve funds or by reducing expenses or a combination thereof. If we took the full amount out of the reserve, it would leave about $8,000 in the reserve. To reduce enough expenses in the housing department to pay the rent, it would require housing to move to an average of 28 hours per week down from a 40-hour a week. Any reduction in hours for housing would require changes in FSS as well, but as those funds can only be used for salary and benefits related to that position, we have not included anything of those funds here. The final change that is being proposed is elimination of the assistant city manager position for savings of $85,366. As we're moving to a biweekly payroll in July of 2017, that'll free up some time in the finance department to take on some of the HR responsibilities. We're still looking at options for the code enforcement duties, including a more regional effort in that area. Planning board duties would be divided out among staff, most likely the city manager's office. So all of these proposals together amount to $206,190 in reduced expenses or increased revenues. This meets the council direction set on November 1st. For 2016, the council set a mill rate of 22.9. Under this mill rate, the city collected less in property taxes than we did in 2015 and 2014. With an increase of $384,000 in taxes for 2017, that is approximately 1 mill increase. If we anticipate the county and school adding another half of a mill to the mill rate for 2017, that would be a mill rate of 24.4, which is 1.5 mils higher than 2016. At a mill rate of 24.4 in 2017, homeowners with an assessed value of $135,000 or less would still see no increase in the amount of taxes that they would pay in 2017 compared to 2015. The average house in Caribou is valued at $95,000. That homeowner would be paying $79 less in 2017 than they paid in 2015. If the council chose not to accept any of these proposals and wanted to raise taxes by another $206,000, which is approximately half a mil, many property tax owners would still see a decrease in their taxes. At a mill rate of 24.9, in 2017, homeowners with an assessed value of $112,000 or less would see no increase in the amount of taxes paid compared to 2015. That home valued at $135,000 would pay approximately $55 in new taxes. The average home valued at $95,000 would be paying $41 less in taxes than in 2015. The budget numbers presented as part of the budget are reflected in these proposals.
And the rest is just information that was in the original?
That was in the original one, yep.
All right. Any comments from council or any thoughts on any of the changes or other ideas? Or Councilor McGougall?
Yeah, the housing. So if we're going down and reducing those hours, how does that affect the services that we provide?
We haven't looked at how that would effectively work. At an average of 28 hours a week, it would leave enough hours over the course of the year. So in the busiest week of the year where checks are going out to landlords or tenants, there could be 40 hours there. That would require 24 hours a week or approximately 24 hours a week. Otherwise, if we moved them down to that, we could look at options of having one person there 5 days a week, having dual coverage on a couple of days, but just one person in the housing department in other weeks, or one person during other parts of the week. But it would certainly impact services, absolutely.
And I asked that question because I remember probably maybe last year or maybe late the year before, you provided a pretty good overview of the FSS program and what that provided. So I question if that's really the best move for our community. So.
If I may, Caribou is the only one north of Bangor that has the FSS program. We're the only one north of Bangor that's strictly running just a Section 8 program on staff of 2 people. And we're making it run really well. We have 100% CMAP scores. HUD is coming to Housing Authority Southern Maine and doing audits. I talked to my head rep today. We're not even on the chart. She says if we continue the way we're going, they'll probably never be up here. We're looking great, she says.
Anything else, Shane?
Yeah, the other comment I have just right now is the janitor position at the rec. That seems pretty important. As much as I think you do enough here, I think striking down janitor services at the rec is a big deal. So I guess I wouldn't be in favor of doing that. Those are my thoughts right now.
Anybody else?
I got 10 questions probably. Can any of the TIF money be used for the downtown infrastructure, such as the new LED lights, things like that? This is an upgrade. It's, could we use some of that TIF money for the lights, or maybe paving of the sidewalks, or the parking lots and things like that, to improve? If that's possible, then why not use the $50,000 that you want to put in the street lights or whatever, take that from the TIF money and take it out of the regular budget. And that would reduce that.
At some point, we would still need general fund dollars to do LED streetlights because we can't use the TIF funds for all of the
No, I know
streetlights.
that, but at least changing over the LED lights, you can do that on a gradual basis. You don't really have to do, you can do them by area or whatever. So if this year you put the 50,000 that you wanted to put it into the TIF, into the capital improvements, take it out of the TIF money, if you can do that, and even the parking lot paving for the infrastructure downtown, take that in there, that would reduce the budget by that amount and not come out of the property tax, if you could do that.
Can I just the LED lights, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but weren't we buying those in bulk with, or looking to buy those in bulk with other communities?
Yep.
But
So I think-
we're not gonna do that right away. We're taking money and putting it into the capital reserve, right? You want $50,000. So that's what's coming out of here today, or this year, because you were going to, pay yourselves back for the rest of it.
Right.
But for this year's budget, if you took that $50,000 that you were gonna take out of tax money and use the TIF money, I know we can't use it for everything, but if you could use that money for this year and perhaps the paving, that would take some of the money out of the budget for the increase.
So you're saying maybe taking money from the TIF and putting it into the reserve?
Right, instead of using property tax money to put it in.
When we actually go and purchase the lights, we can certainly
Or
pay for the lights that we're going to buy that are in the TIF district through that, through those funds.
Or you don't
But-
have to take them, if you don't want to take the money out, don't put any in. Don't put the 50, if you have to wait until you actually buy to pay for it out of the TIF, if you can't transfer TIF money into the capital improvement, then don't put any in there and use the TIF money to pay the 50,000 or whatever to pay when you actually buy the lights. Take the 50,000 from, see what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Yes, it's possible it's a little more difficult to wrap my head around the numbers without knowing what we're going to be paying per street light or anything like that, and how many street lights are in the downtown TIF district and how many aren't.
But you've got
Yes.
50,000 budgeted.
Yep.
Okay. Work it out. And then say, when you do decide, then you use TIF money to pay up to that 50,000. If it's legally.
I would hate to say that we can use 50,000 in TIF funds to do that, because I have no idea how many streetlights are in the downtown TIF district right now, or what we're going to pay for a streetlight, because that's going to dictate what it is. I mean, how much a streetlight costs, how much it costs to put it up, and multiply those numbers by how many streetlights are in the TIF district. That's what we could use TIF funds on. I have no idea what any of those numbers are.
If you could even figure out, I'm just saying, take that right out of there. Does it have to be in the downtown area alone, or?
In the
whole-
TIF district, which is
Well, no,
quite large.
Yeah, so it doesn't have to be right here in this
Right.
downtown, it can be anywhere in the TIF district.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so even if we've already got some LEDs here, we can go put it in another area, but I would think that would be
Do we have any LED lights here now? Do we have any on the Herschel Street there? Are there LED?
On Sweden Street.
Yeah.
Yep.
On Sweden Street,
Right. The
okay.
period lighting is all LED.
In the parking lots, north and south parking lots are LED. And are the ones on Hatch Drive LED? They're awfully bright. No? Okay. So you'd have to, if, in order to do what Councilor Terrio was asking, you'd have to break out your numbers and then assess how much it's gonna cost here and how much it's gonna cost there, and
Right.
then fund accordingly.
Which is what we had kind of planned on doing, but without knowing any of the numbers as to what we're paying, what it's going to cost to install, and how many are in the downtown. We haven't done the calculations on what that number really is, because we don't know those numbers.
And any paving that could be done down there too, maybe
Yep.
get an idea of the paving and stuff.
Yep.
deleting the city manager, the assistant city manager's position. I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that. Is he looking for a job to leave somewhere or whatever, or because I know you actively look, and you know that kind of makes me nervous not to. I mean, we kind of fought to get that position, you know, going anyway, and I'm not in. I don't know if that's a good idea to eliminate that position. If there's room to move HR to the tax collector, then do we need a full-time person, second person in the tax collector's office? If there's room to take on extra, can we get by with a half person or whatever? I don't know, these are just things I'm asking. Does Denise have enough to do during the day? Can she fill in someplace else or whatever? Is there someplace that you can double up on a couple of other?
So by eliminating the assistant city manager position, obviously more of the work would fall into myself, Denise, and the finance
Right.
staff.
But if you didn't eliminate it, could you eliminate or double up somewhere else?
I would say not necessarily. And we looked at that. I looked at that. And if I thought we could have done that, I would have made a different recommendation than I did.
The rec department, do you get enough back to pay for the activities, like when you go take a van load to the botanical gardens and stuff like that? Do you get enough back to pay those expenses and everything else that you do up there? It's not.
For the CRX and the TOS program or
Yeah.
self-sufficient program.
So anything like that, you'll get the money back for that. Okay, let's see.
The other part of Joan's question, the parking lots, that's infrastructure as well, is it not?
Yep, we could pave some of those parking lots with.
So we could pave them all, if we have to pave them all parking lot, and I know it's not now, but 5 years from now,
Right.
we could use the TIF funds for that,
Yep.
rather than our
We
capital
could.
improvement program.
Yeah, that wasn't factored into here as we're looking at potentially doing a new fire station and just use the availability of funds over the next 5 years. We thought the TIF funds would be more used if we actually move forward with building a new fire station.
What's in the TIF account now?
It's in the financials right in front of you. I guess I don't know right
Just under
offhand.
400,000, I think something. Are we looking maybe to do something for the police department at the same time?
Anything that we do with the new fire station would definitely be a joint public safety building, fire, police. Yep.
And are we gonna have to wait until you get enough money is there any way that we can go for any kind of grants or maybe a bond issue or something so that we can get that?
We will definitely look at grants when we get to that point, but it's going to require a bond because we've set aside in the
Right.
TIF district $1 million for a fire station. It's going to be well over.
Yeah.
So it would definitely have to require a bond.
What's the account number, Austin, for the TIF?
It's Department 5 on the,
It's in
so
the
it'll be
back.
towards the bottom of the balance sheet.
Was, oh, and have you also considered for payroll, have you also considered farming that out to a payroll service?
We looked at that after our last payroll person retired, and at that point it was not
Wasn't
worth,
cost
it was not cost effective. $28,000 is what we have in fund balance in the TIF fund right now.
The what?
28,000.
I see 300.
Anything else, Council Terrio?
Not unless something else pops in my brain.
I'm in favor of supporting the budget as proposed. I feel that with $590,000 and we come to some middle ground of eliminating $206,000. And if even if it doesn't increase the property tax, even though it increases the mill, we could argue that. We are still showing that we are trying to keep expenses at under control, I guess, or however you want to put it. I just feel it's a happy medium.
I would agree with that.
Councilman Martin, you got a whole lot of questions on the, okay.
I agree with Jody.
Councilman McDonough?
Oh, yeah. We only have one janitor at the rec department?
Have two.
Two.
One at 28 hours a week and the other one's at 20.
Okay.
The one that does 28 hours a week, they do a lot of outside things, not just rec janitor.
Okay,
They do the
alright.
sidewalks here, the library, everything else.
Yeah, well, we just spent a lot of money for that building. We don't want to let it fall apart around us.
Absolutely.
I don't know what to think right now about the housing issue. I got to think about that more. So, and I'm in agreement with retaining the assistant city manager. I thought we made that quite clear that we wanted that to happen. And it seems to me that whichever way you stress the importance of the duties that you would be dispersing or whatsoever, that's an important position too, because all you're gonna do is just push that responsibility here and push it right there. That's, and I think, I got a question in respect to one of the questions that Councilor Terrio asked as far as tax collector, assistant tax collector. Somewhere in there, according to state statute, isn't there supposed to be a separation of duties? Because one can only do so much with some financial portions of it, and the other one has to do so much or something like that. They can't overlap in some of their responsibilities, correct? Okay, thank you. Then I went through and I got some, I don't know how many, if you bear with me, some recommendations in the capital improvement. Maybe some questions too. Under municipal building reserve,
Page numbers, can you get?
page,
Always into the,
number 23.
always into this one.
Can you clear up that fuzzy math for me, please? So we're, at the end of this year, we're looking at a negative balance.
Yep.
And we want to put in $45,000.
Yep.
And at the end of the year, we'll show another negative balance.
Yep.
Is there anything in there that can be split up and some done this year and some done next year, so we can probably try and maintain a positive balance and we're not going into the following year's budget?
We could slide over the old hose tower siding to 2018 and bring us within 2,000, and the stairwell, roof on the entrance of the stairwell, would bring us to a positive balance at the end of 2017.
And
sorry.
there'll be a slight savings there?
It would be shifting the costs down to,
We would just be budgeting the following year, correct?
Right.
Okay, so we're not budgeting the full amount this year?
right,
Okay. Then the roof on the Lions building?
yep.
That kind of sort of like just popped on the radar, didn't it? Can you split that out and
I would
do
not
it in 2
recommend
years?
splitting that out into over 2 years.
You wouldn't?
No, I believe we do need to get that done in 2017.
Is there anything based on the discussion we just had about parking lot maintenance that we can schedule for next year to get done? Like maybe finish up around the fire department?
Fire department, city hall, PD, any of it could be done.
I mean, there are funds available. I mean, we don't have anything scheduled until 2020 right now.
I'd agree with that, just, we should We should look at breaking it up so we're not all hitting it at once, right? Or try to.
The drainage around the library,
Yep.
has anybody given us an estimate on looking at that and fixing it?
No, we have not gotten any estimates yet.
Okay, well, I did go over and look at myself because I was curious, and there's a hole in the wall there. That's why they're getting water in the building.
Not
It was-
anymore.
That the hole in the wall is fixed? The water's diverted away? So we may not need to spend $10,000.
At this point, I would not,
Say no, but we may not.
Because we would, Dave Willett and I have looked at it. We'd look to redo the paving along the east side of the building, up the back so it would slope away from the building, slope down towards the street.
Okay.
We'd also want to potentially look at doing some type of drainage system around the back side of the building where it kind of gets into a little.
Get it all away from the building instead of
Right.
straight down?
Yep.
Okay. Fire equipment reserve, got $99,000 this year. Can we reduce that to $65,000 and push that fire truck out to 25 years, like it was probably originally scheduled to do?
That fire truck, quite frankly, won't go any further than 2018.
Why is that?
It's rusting right off the frame. Now, Chief Susi has given this a lot of thought, and I believe he's prepared to speak to that tonight.
I can.
Page one. What page you on, I'm sorry?
Oh, I'm on page 50.
So, a couple things. I looked into repairing it, because you always want to know what
Yeah.
it is to repair
Okay.
as to replace. So, I called 2 companies that can do the job for us. So they have to totally remove the cab and skeletonize it, and then the truck would have to come up to 2012 standards,
Why is that?
because that's the NFPA standard. It has to be certified, so the NFPA inspectors come out of Boston and check the rebuild on it. So
Where does it
has-
say that? Please. Thank you.
So both companies filled me in on the same thing. That truck would have to be brought up to the new standards whenever you alter the original manufacturer specifications, which they'll have to alter because they no longer make parts for that truck. Company's out of business. It's gone. So both quotes were right around $125,000 to $150,000 on that truck. That's fine. I'm a steward for you, but the truck will still need to be replaced. So we'll get a couple more years out of it. The same thing we did with engine 2. We got 5 years and spent twice as much for the truck. The other thought that came into my mind, it's a kooky place up there, was to eliminate one truck in our fleet and remove the rescue from our fleet and purchase a rescue pumper, a Class A pumper set up for rescue. So instead of 2 trucks to maintain, we would have 1 truck to maintain. That would do both functions.
But you still gotta buy the new truck.
You still have to purchase a truck, but we'd have 2 trucks to put in on trade or sell outright in order to offset the cost of the replacement vehicle.
So what cost are we looking for there, or haven't you gone in that far yet?
I've played with it a little bit. It all depends. We can get a demo unit at a show, and those are marked down a little bit, but a rescue pumper is gonna be in the neighborhood of $600,000.
And what could we get for the 2 trucks that you're talking about, not?
Honestly, Mayor, I can't answer that. The rescue truck is a newer chassis. We get good money for that, and the back is new on it. You might get 80 to 90,000 for that. Engine 1, it depends who wants it and how long they want the truck to last. I can't answer that because the repairs are gonna have to be remade to the cab.
I guess I'm gonna go back, you know, on this truck. And you know, people here on the council talk about kicking the can down the road and everything. In some cases, I think we kick the can up the road instead of down the road. And I say that because I look at last year's budget. In fact, almost a year ago today, because it was in November. And I look at the capital requests for the fire department. And for 2017, we were looking to replace the hydraulic aerial pump for the ladder truck. That isn't on here anymore. There's something else on here now, but it's not that. So I don't know what happened to that, if all of a sudden it's fine and we don't have to replace it, or...
The money's there, they're coming Monday for the inspection. If it needs to be replaced, it'll have to be replaced. It was one of those ones that if you have to do it, you have to do it, and the truck goes away for almost a month to get it repaired.
So I'll carry on from there. 2018, last year, we never planned on anything. 2019, we planned on replacing all the SCBA replacement, which we've already got a grant for and done. So we won't have to worry about that. 2020, we talked about jaw replacement, which again, due to the work you did, Scott, we got those at no cost, new jaw units. 2021, we had nothing in the budget. 2022, we had nothing in the budget. 2023, replace number 1. And my question is, in 1 year, how come all of a sudden we've gone 5 years difference in when we're going to replace the truck? I don't understand that. You know, the truck is, first of all, the truck is not 20 years old, I don't think. It's a 1998, is it not?
Right, in 2018, it'll be 20 years
Yeah,
old.
okay, when we're replacing it. But, you know, we talk about this budget and talk about, if we don't have good numbers to work with here and talk about what we're doing, and then all of a sudden stuff changes in 1 year, I don't know how you're ever gonna fund everything. Just not gonna happen. And I don't think this is the only instance. I haven't looked through all of last year's, but I've looked through some of it. I know our LED lights last year, we said we're gonna be 155,000. And we were gonna get a big grant, and we were gonna save 29,000 a year. So it wasn't gonna cost us anything in last year's budget. Now we're looking at 300,000. I don't know if there's no grants available anymore. And we're talking now that we're gonna have a 3-year payback on them. It's gone from a 6 or 7 year payback to a 3-year payback. I mean, I don't know how you budget when you don't have the right figures, or the figures keep changing in that short a period of time. You know, I can see where you something 5 years down the road that you had planned 5 years, you might need it in 4 or 6 or whatever. You might be able to put it off till 6, but you know, when we're changing things from 2 years to 8 years, or from 8 years to 2 years, I just, look, it gets very frustrating when I go through it, so.
Nope. I read this. And it says right up here at the top of the instructions, over the stuff that you've got highlighted, guidelines for first line fire reserve fire apparatus.
Yep.
This annex is not part of the requirements of this NFPA document, but is included for informational purposes only. Okay, so it's not mandated that that happen, correct?
It's mandated that that truck is brought up to 2012 standards.
Where does it say that?
You can come in tomorrow and I'll give you the whole NFPA.
Yeah, so I put that question on hold then, okay?
Sure.
I'm going out of town tomorrow, Monday.
Both companies I contacted gave me the same information as well, and they're the ones that send me the new NFPA.
I still think that that probably can be repaired based on my assessment.
It can be.
I know, but I just don't think that all these additional things need to be done. based on the way I'm reading this. So I would just as soon come and sit down and talk to you, and we'll go over it back and forth. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
Okay. Leave that one on hold. Well, I'm not, am I done? Can we move the foam to the regular expense budget?
Yeah, we've already talked, we took the money out of that. That was one of the cuts.
Building reserve. We got a $40,000 balance at the end of the year, according to this.
That
Page 58, excuse me.
It shouldn't be.
You there? You there, Austin?
Yep.
Oh. It shows we want to put $9,000 in. We're going to do some work in the bathroom for $5,000. There's nothing scheduled the rest of the 5-year cycle. Do we need to put $9,000 in there this year?
Well, one of them I just paid, there's not that much in there, I just paid for hot topping of the front parking lot.
Does that not meet the criterion in the parking lot reserve? Am I misunderstanding something here?
I didn't know where
Austin?
the money was coming from to
Yep.
pay for the parking lot, so I thought it had been budgeted within the department, so I'm not aware of anything.
Yeah, we can definitely move that to the reserve if we'd like. As noted at the bottom too, if a new fire ambulance station is built in the next 5 to 10 years, this fund would be used for that as well.
I understand that, but, you know, if we can save a little bit of money now, I mean, if we had more things scheduled later on, I probably wouldn't see any harm in not putting it in there. Yeah. Oh, I think I'm almost done with you, Scott.
That's okay.
The stretcher units,
Yes, sir.
can those be broken out over a 2-year period, do 2 this year and 2 next year?
They're being replaced in January. I was able to save 2, 4, 6, 8, $16,000 on stretchers.
Probably wouldn't save that the next time around.
I will not save that the next time. I had a deal worked out with a neighboring community that was gonna purchase at the same time. They backed out, and the company still gave us our discount for ordering them when we did before the price went up in October, if we took a January delivery.
So is that 59,000 the price you bought them at?
Yes, sir.
The only other comment I want to make, and I do this all the time, is that the citizens of this community pay a lot of money for the assets that we provided to service this community. And I think we better start taking better care of it. The issues with that particular fire truck didn't happen overnight. They should have been taken care of when they were first observed. Now, I don't know what past practice was, but I hope that future practice is adhered to, and maybe you set up a preventative maintenance policy like it says here. Okay.
And we do have one.
Okay. And that doesn't go just for the fire department, that goes throughout the city.
What's the life expectancy on these stretchers? What are they good for?
10 years, and we've had them for 12.
So there's no value in the ones that are left? We
They
can
gave us
sell them
no-
to somebody else? Or?
The company gave us 2,000 apiece for them.
Oh, okay.
To take them back, they redo the motors and the pistons and
So they rehab them.
So you got a discount of 16,000 and they gave us 8,000, 24,000?
the
So these are like
16,000.
$21,000, $22,000 each?
No. The 16,000 was with the trade-in as well. They gave us 2,000 off plus 2,000 per stretcher.
Oh, okay. Well, even so, we're still cheap. They're close to
Stretchers-
20,000 apiece, aren't they?
They're just shy. After you get them, they're about 17,000. And they still don't hold themselves.
Councilor McDonough,
I got police department,
page number.
page number 70. Can you answer for that?
I can try.
I sure hope so. It says, digitize paper records in the PD and City Hall.
Yep.
$9,000. do we have to spend $9,000 this year? Can we break it out? 4,500 this year, 4,500 next? Is that part of the,
That's part of the having things stand up downstairs.
okay,
Um,
yeah, well,
And we'd have to go out for quotes or bids on exactly how much that 9,000 would get us, and certainly we could reduce that. Whatever the dollar amount's gonna be, is what we could get done.
We're gonna go out and get somebody else to come in and do it, is that the theory?
Right.
Yeah.
and are they gonna be cataloged and everything in accordance with the Maine's records people?
Yep.
Okay. See what else? Cover the street rates. See any more dog ears, Dave? Yeah, there's one. Collins Pond, a math question,
What page, sorry?
103.
Thank you.
At the end of August, we're negative 12,000. At December 31st, positive 15. Is that due to the land swap and transfer of funds in that?
No, that's the grant share, cost share from the bridge project.
Correct.
Okay,
That's what is it?
Grant funds that we're getting back for the cost share of the bridge project that they did earlier this spring.
Yep.
But are we gonna have 27,900 expenditures? Or is that
That's
what we're getting back?
That's what we're getting back.
that's what we're getting back.
Okay,
So to bring it back to a positive number.
Correct.
yeah, all
Thank
right.
you.
Anything else?
Nope, that's all I got right now.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
Any chance of getting any pilot fees or fees from any of these places that don't, like facilities and some of the other places that aren't paying taxes?
We implemented pilots with a number of places 2 years ago. That's
Right,
showing the
but-
revenues.
But
Um,
didn't you have to write some off last year?
the 40,000 from Facilities Inc. Yep,
Okay, but.
they pay currently.
They do, okay, that's all. Yeah.
We might be able to try and find something with some of the Micmac housing.
Mhm, yeah, that was.
Talking with their chief
yeah,
about that.
okay.
When we reduced the administration budget, because you had 3.5% and everything into,
Right.
have we reduced things like social security costs and
All
pension
of-
costs and all that
All
across
of
the
the
line?
wages is, yep, Social Security, retirement, everything.
One other thing on the LED lights, and maybe we don't have to, we've got some here now. I mean, I did some research, I know there's like 15 different big companies that sell the lights. And I was wondering if we shouldn't just get some, and by some I mean like 4 from this company, 4 from that company, and put them up and see what it looks like and what they're,
And that's part of the reason why we're looking at the engineering side of it as well, so they can help us through that process. Like communities in southern Maine, Falmouth, Rockland, Biddeford, they've done a lot of the work there and they've shared all that work with us, and we're definitely going to be modeling it based off of that. But the traffic engineers that know all the lighting that you need per, or how far out and per candle foot and all that good stuff, that would be a part of it.
okay, yeah, I want to say that I keep thinking about the pellet boiler project. Would have been nice to just bought one of them to start with and found out how well it worked before we got 4 of them, so.
Yeah.
On fuel tanks. I know there's been some discussion with one of the oil companies about getting fuel direct rather than us tearing out our tanks and putting in new tanks. Are we any further along with that, where we know what pricing would be?
I think we've got a better feel for that, based upon what we've heard from the Carey and the RSU, right, Dave?
Yes, the other identities of Caribou would come on board with us, which the difference was like between 60,000 for our use versus 100,000 gallons if it was all the other
Yeah.
combined. And there was a potential have a penny gallon difference for that. He didn't really strike anything down on what it would be an exact thing. We'd have to weigh out a bunch of factors. My department's a big user for the diesel in the wintertime, and I guess I'm gonna make it right up front that I would be in favor of us putting tanks back at the Public Works. I am open to any and all other suggestions. We could talk about the cost of the installation, but we're gonna have to do, if we need to get some pricing, we have to do it this winter, because if we wait till springtime, it's too late. So I guess before we put a whole lot of work, hours and hours in building a request for price, I'm wondering where the council would rather go with it. I mean, if I gave you stab in the dark numbers.
Well, a lot of it would be based on pricing.
So, I mean, I can give you, I mean, providing, I think Austin could as well, but I can give you some preliminary ideas, but there's nothing for sure, because we can't get a price without really going out for details. Do we want 12-foot hoses, or do we want 15-foot hoses? I can tell you that without a doubt, that the city will save money by going to an outside vendor. And I say that because currently we're charging ourselves 10 cents a gallon above our cost. Obviously, if we went with brand new tanks, we could probably reduce that price down because the first 20 years, we charged ourselves 4 cents. It was only me that came to you guys 4 or 5 years ago and said, at this rate, we're not gonna make it, so we increased it to 10. If we only charge ourselves 4 cents a gallon, we will be right in line with what an outside vendor could charge us, but we lose the inconvenience of having the pumps at our facility. I have talked to Scott, I've talked to Gary, I've talked to all of them a little bit, and the buses would have a little bit of an inconvenience at the Daigle Oil because they are fueling up in the daytime hours, so they would probably have to go out to the farm. Definitely all my trucks and equipment would have to go out to, if we chose Daigle, that is. We would have to go out to the Daigle farm as well. Scott's ambulance would probably be okay if we did dock here in town. So, I mean, it's gonna be really hard to put an exact number, but no matter what, when they talk about cost plus 4 cents or cost plus 5 cents per gallon, remember, we're buying it at that cost as well. Everything would be new, so I would assume that we could go quite a few years without any kind of repairs to the system. At one point, I figured that each one of my vehicles during a storm would have to fill up twice. And if you gave it 40 minutes of travel time to go out there and come back, and then you really can't, the men are in them trucks for so long that they need bathrooms, so they'll have to come to the shop anyway. So we're gonna lose 40 minutes, 45 minutes per trip. And it's always going to be in overtime hours. I don't care if you get your fuel at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it just makes your run that much longer on the end. So just for rough numbers, I figured we could spend about $7,500 a winter just in travel expenses. And I didn't include any additional fuel costs for that or anything. A truck getting 4 miles a gallon, it's a gallon out, it's a gallon back. There's $4 for each trip. So if they made 2 trips out there, that's $8. If we times it by 20 pieces of equipment, and then times that by 30 storms, there's probably another couple $1,000s there. So I think if we factor in all of the different items, we'll be behind the 8 ball quite a ways, but.
How long of a contract were you looking at?
I don't believe there was any contract at that time, or
Well,
maybe.
time period, yeah.
We could lock in for, typically they don't do any longer than 6 months at a time. And it's typically just a number of gallons, 42,000. It's in increments of 42,000 gallons.
Yes, it was. I do have a little bit of information that I got from,
Is that for everybody or just ourselves?
That's where you get the best deal, because that's the tanker load that as they buy it is at 42,000.
yeah.
I
So,
thought you could buy out a year on the diesel.
so MDOT bought 3 years, and I didn't share it with you, Austin, sorry. Surprise! Back a year and a half ago, Daigle Oil, not Daigle Oil, excuse me. MDOT bought a 3-year contract with a vendor in town, and I don't know which one it was. But the contract price was $3.75 a gallon. So all last winter, I seen DOT vehicles at the Caribou One Stop. I've seen them I think at the Irving Station. I've seen them. They bought their fuel all outside. And I just thought they were done with their pumps. They were no longer going to use them. When I called them, what had happened was the prices come down so much, and since they signed that contract, they couldn't afford to buy their fuel. And the vendor that Austin and I had talked to had also said the same thing. If you decide to lock a price and it comes down, the come down price doesn't follow you. But if their price goes up, you do maintain.
Yeah.
So in this particular instance, why the DOT ever went for a 3-year contract is beyond me. But so I asked them about redundance. What happens if there's a power outage on Bennett Drive and no one can get any fuel? Do they know if them companies have any backup generators? And that wasn't a big concern to them, because if we were out of power on Bennett Drive for several hours, or wherever they're getting fuel, they still have fuel in their tanks, so they do have a backup. It's expensive fuel, but they do have a backup. So the contracting price, I think Austin was in favor of that at the time, and me, I go tanker by tanker by tanker, and just differences in the way we are. There's no one way's right or wrong.
I'll say that from just my opinion. I mean, the one thing that concerns me about that is you kind of lose some control. And that concerns me a little bit. And the other thing too that I'll point out is, no matter what we do, whether we put new tanks in or we go with an outside vendor, you're still going to have to pay. And who knows what you're going to have to pay when you rip those old tanks out. You're not just going to be
Oh,
able to
no,
do it.
that's correct.
That should be factored in the decision.
Well, in the reserve account that we have, there's more than sufficient money to remove them tanks. So
Yeah, there
there's
would be money.
approximately $100,000 there. You know, I wouldn't want to say that we can get them out for 20 or 25. I really don't know at this point.
How much is in there? 100,000?
About 100,000, yeah. When I talked with Adams and Fogg, approximately 5 years ago,
At the other side to get them up.
they was, that's when we were putting 4 cents a gallon into our tank reserve. And it was estimated then that we could get a pretty decent system for around $100,000. So I did the math on what we were doing, and I said, if we put 10 cents per gallon, we'll be okay. I talked to 2 different vendors about products for the city, and one of them recommended putting tanks on top of the ground and mounting pumps right at the end of the tanks. A little bit unsightly, but that vendor said that it was probably somewhere in the ballpark of 40, maybe a tad more, $1,000 cheaper to have them on top of the ground compared to in the ground. When I talked to the local vendor that does it in our area, he said that he don't believe there's 40,000, but he also said that it couldn't be done for 100,000. I'm thinking that second vendor is in the $150,000 range. When Austin and I talked to Daigle Oil, one of my concerns was for the diesel fuel, when you put it on top of the ground, ambient air temperature at 0, 10 below, what's going to happen at the fuel, at the pumps? Daigle said that they do send servicemen from time to time to go to places, and they build a little tent over the pump, and they put heat in there, and they clean the wax out of the filters. In my conversation with DOT, they have 2 maintenance lots that have fuel tanks above ground and it had 0 failure. Seemed to think that it wasn't a real concern. And if they put any more, they're going to be on top of the ground.
We put above ground tanks in all the time. Yeah.
For
I
gas or
don't-
diesel?
For avgas, actually.
Yeah, it doesn't freeze like diesel, or it doesn't gel, I don't think.
Yeah, well, I see them in a lot of other public works too, so.
Yeah,
And I don't,
And I
I
think
don't know
there's
if
some
there's
safety.
any insurance benefits or anything, you know? on our insurance rates and that if we don't have them ourselves. Obviously 4 cents a gallon, long-term, isn't gonna be enough to replace them the next time around either, because they're only gonna go up in price.
So if you put 4 cents a gallon and you pumped 100,000 gallons a year, that would be how many? 40,000, 4,000 a year? Yeah,
Yeah,
4 cents times 100,000 gallons, would be 4,000 a year, times 30 years. There's another 120,000.
yeah. But it's not, you can't do it today for 120,000. So how are you gonna do it in 25 years for 120,000?
I'm not gonna worry about it.
No, I know neither.
I don't plan.
But I'm just saying, you know,
But start somewhere.
Right, and.
As you get closer,
And
you're
there
gonna
again,
refine it.
you know, the convenience is the big thing for me, it really is. I've looked at, I know they're, I won't say ugly, they're just unsightly. And we would not put them in where the islands are, I'd move them more towards the drive that goes up to the rec center. I would, if we do that route, I will separate them enough so that we can actually pull a truck in between and on the other side, so we can still fuel 2 pieces of equipment at a time. There's by having the double wall tanks with a monitoring system in them, there's no more DEP reports. I don't have to file with them at all. I do not have to do any tank integrity reports with the software, and I don't even have to do the once a year, I think it's called SIA reports. I don't have to do any of that. There's so little requirements for on top of the ground with a double wall tank that they don't even require that you put that on a cement slab. A lot less requirements for them above ground compared to in the ground. If they're in the ground, any of the piping has to be triple wall pipes for when they're in the ground. There's a lot of things to it. So nice, neat package with it in the ground. They're hid. Just have a couple pumps sticking out. But we could be in the $150,000 range in the ground. It would be 110,000 somewhere in that neighborhood for above ground. And we could be, if we go outside vendor, we could be 4 to 5 cents a gallon. Is that what I remember, Austin? Somewhere on there? Or was it, if we got on more, they could have gone down to 3 or 4? I don't remember what it was.
Yeah.
For safety factor, let's call it 4. It's not that it changes the cost a whole lot, but I think if we put them in, we charge ourselves the 4 or 5 cents a gallon. Yeah, we pick up maintenance, but we definitely save on convenience, so. I don't know what the council would like to do with it, but I would like to know one way or another what your thoughts are, so that if we do plan on putting them in, I can start the process. I would like to have them tanks out of the ground next summer, even though we are licensed until 2018. There are 230 or 240 tanks that need to be out of the ground in 2018. I don't believe we're going to get a vendor to do it that late in the season, unless we contract it now for 2018. But we can save a fair amount of work by replacing them now on my end of it. And if we go to an outside vendor, I lose it all. So there's gains all the way around. There's no question about it. And I just think that from my department and knowing what we deal with, I would like to have the pumps there.
How long can a truck go on a tank while plowing?
Well, they get about 75 gallons. There are a few with 100 gallons. They're burning, they're getting about 4 miles an hour, and they're averaging about 25 miles an hour. So 6 gallons an hour, 9, 10 hours, they're down to the bottom of it. They're getting close.
Well, I look at it as South Main will be well plowed, but if you're gone for 40 minutes, something else is piling up.
Well, the other thing too is, and for us, I believe that we could get into Daigle Oil at night after they're closed and there's no car traffic in there. And there's gonna be one at a time as well, and usually that's the way it is with us, unless I make the call and say, everyone come in, and then there's 2 or 3 at the pumps at a time. That would be a little bit of congestion down there. But for 12 to 15 hours a day that we'd be getting fuel, that we'd have to go out there, that man has already been either on his in-town section or his country section for 2 hours, and it's 4 hours for the most part. There's, you know, he's got to get to a restroom, he's got to get a cup of coffee, or he's got to grab a snack out of the machine. So they're going to be coming to the shop for one of them reasons or the other. And when they work them kind of hours, you can't expect them not to. I mean, just take the strain off the eyes for 10 minutes is a big help. And whether they come to my shop and get fuel, take their truck, turn around, and they pull into the break room for a minute, or if they go out to the farm, they're still coming back to the shop. So that's why I say there's going to be 40-minute increase by going out there. I mean, it's 5 miles from the shop to there. So,
I think that's a lot of wasted travel. I think it would be much more convenient to have it now.
oh, it's definitely convenient. I mean,
That would be,
yeah, it's definitely. I did look at their reporting on their fuel systems, because that's a big concern for all of us, really. And they brought a sample of their reports. The reports didn't look bad. It's right in line with what we do. And I guess I could say that, you know, every day the price of fuel is going to change even for us. It's going to be at that given day that you buy fuel, what is the fuel at the rack, or whatever they call it. If you get into a trend that you're rising prices, when we buy 8,000 gallons, it's the same for 8,000 gallons. But it can go the other way.
It goes
too.
the other way too. I
It
mean,
can go the other way. So that's why I don't really consider that a big factor.
what we should be doing, and you could pay for your tanks a lot quicker, is you should be checking the price every day, and when it goes up, we should be putting it up down there to everybody. School, hospital.
So in the same essence, then if I'm gonna take it up every day for them, am I gonna take it down when the price goes down too?
Yeah, but we do it just like the service stations. You put it up the same day, you put it down 2 weeks later.
Oh!
Be an advantage to whoever the operator is. Well, we've had some comments, but I don't know if there's any consensus. Talked about the assistant city manager. I don't know if there's a consensus on council what we should do there.
Keep them.
yeah, I'm not in favor of eliminating that position.
The only thing I'll say about that is, I was in the same boat last year when we talked about it, and had some conversations with Austin about that. And I think, you know, pretty hard to have an assistant manager. I mean, maybe it's just a title thing, but, you know, he's doing other things. He's doing code enforcement, he's doing HR. I mean, we need somebody that's doing that stuff. You know, we're to me, we're kind of falling down on our what we do core-wise. I think, and I think Austin tried to get that point across last year, and it kind of hit me anyway that that's not the. It's the next step, I guess. We need to fill the services that we currently need, and.
So you're saying you could get rid of the city manager, or assistant city manager, but hire other people to do the services?
And I'm saying let the city manager manage that aspect. Yep. I don't think we should be looking at I don't think we should look at that position as a succession plan for Austin, for the city manager. I think we should have somebody else that's actually taking care of code enforcement. Someone else that, and maybe they're taking care of HR too. But I'm throwing that out there that I think that was looked at, in my head anyway,
But
differently.
I still don't understand. So we shouldn't do anything, we should just keep him, not call him the assistant city manager? And just keep them and pay them the money and everything? Is that what you're saying?
No.
You're saying to get rid of them?
No, what I'm saying is that
Either you're gonna get rid of them or you aren't. You wanna get rid of them or don't you?
we need to fill the position of an HR person and code enforcement.
You want to reclassify him?
No, it doesn't matter. I don't want, I want the manager to manage that. I don't care how he does that. But I don't think we need an assistant city manager now as a succession, as a backup for Austin. Whether that loses or gains someone else, I guess that's not the point, in my opinion. But we need to be having someone taking care. I'm like code enforcement. You know, we get rid of the assistant city manager who does code enforcement. I mean, what are we just gonna? Are we gonna throw out the code enforcement policy? We need.
Property maintenance code, you mean?
Yeah, yeah. So, someone needs to do those duties. Does it need to be someone that is going to take over Austin's position in the event that he goes on vacation or whatever? Does that make sense?
Well, no, I'm missing something because, first of all, whoever the assistant city manager is, doesn't mean he's gonna take over Austin's position when Austin leaves. I mean, he could be a possibility, but I would think that we would advertise for the position, and if we found someone that we felt was better qualified to do it, we would do it. As far as assistant city manager now, he's doing code enforcement and human resource. And when we did this and those duties were discussed, if we did away with the position now, and would we hire two people to do code enforcement and human resources? I mean,
Again, something for the manager to
so that may end up costing us more than what it's costing us now. I mean, well, I know it would definitely.
I'm just
cost
under the
us
impression
more.
last year that was why we made the decision to kind of go against Austin's recommendation, was a succession plan for Austin.
Well, it says here, it says it'll be divided out amongst the
Well,
Well,
staff.
that wasn't my
that wrong?
rationale for doing it.
What?
That's what I thought was the general consensus.
It's,
No,
it's
that's
somebody,
just part of it. That's in his absence if he's not
Okay,
here
so
for
it's-
some reason,
Right.
all right? But he has specific duties to do,
Right.
all right? The title can be changed to anything. He could be project manager, all right? But
administrative assistant, anything. I mean,
administrative
it doesn't-
assistant, anything.
It's just a backup for Austin and additional duties that he can do. It doesn't necessarily have to be called an assistant.
Bottom line is that to me, if we're gonna get rid of the assistant city manager position, then we should be taking a better look at what that means as far as services and who's gonna do HR, who's gonna do code enforcement.
Look, I don't disagree with that,
Yep. That's the bottom line, I guess.
but,
Yeah.
you know what? Austin, what is gonna happen there if you do that, if we got rid of the assistant city manager?
HR would go to the finance department. Code enforcement would fall into city manager along with the planning board. We'd look at potential regional options for code enforcement as well. But
You mean somebody that might do other communities as well as ours?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I think what Councilor McDougall touched on briefly with last year, when we had this discussion with the council and looked at possibly doing a city planner. At that point, we would have needed an HR perhaps as well. With finance, payroll going out to bi-weekly, that's going to free up some time there. So we wouldn't have to hire a human resources director in that scenario. But a city planner, somebody to do the planning and the code aspect would make sense in that scenario.
Yeah, I mean, from the purpose of this, I thought this was presented on the basis of reducing cost, but if it's not gonna reduce cost, I mean, I don't know why we'd do anything.
Right, so this proposal tonight would not be to replace that position with anything.
Yeah.
That the duties would be divvied out amongst
Yeah,
them.
But
maybe
I
I
don't
should say,
think that
maybe I should
Councilor
say that I
McDougall
don't.
agrees with that.
No, I don't. No,
So,
no, because it's a reduction in services that I don't think we should be doing.
No, I don't either.
so you're not really in favor of eliminating the position, which comes back to the
Right.
first question. Jody, you
I
haven't said it?
was never in favor of funding the assistant city manager position last year anyway, so I'm gonna stand by that, eliminate the position. And if we do it, there's the mention of additional savings and reserve accounts and whatnot, any of those additional savings, I will not support unless they're added to the 209,000 savings now. I'm not in favor of taking money to save to potentially fund that position. So if we were to not fund $40,000 somewhere else, I want to see that added to the 209.
Councilor Martin?
I just have a hard time. Would you support a 1.5 mil increase?
No.
All right, so you don't want to cut anything, but you don't want to support that increase. So, I mean, that's where I'm stuck.
Well,
We have to find 7 people here to get.
then let's go a step further. And I'll go back to something I discussed here a few weeks ago and got very upset about. I won't get as upset tonight. But is there anybody on council that believes that when we take money for taxes from the taxpayers, that shouldn't be applied to their tax bill? And I'm referring to, I look at 2015. We completed the expense budget and everything in 2015 before the end of the year. The end of the year came around, there was $371,000 in appropriated taxes that we didn't spend on expenses. That was carried over and was put into our undesignated fund, I believe is where it went. The same year, we had 55,000 roughly in revenues over and above what we had budgeted. And that part, I don't think we handled the way we should have, because I think it says right in our charter that that's supposed to be applied to the next year's taxes, if I'm correct. And I don't think we did that. I think we just stuck that in the undesignated fund as well. So there's 425,000, 30,000, whatever, that we either collected from taxpayers or had additional revenue on that we never budgeted for. In my opinion, I just think that that's wrong. I think that should be applied to the tax bill. They paid it based on the expenses that we said we were going to have and we didn't have. So it should be applied to the expense bill this year. I don't know what everybody else thinks.
So it's in a fund right now?
Yeah.
The money is there?
Yeah.
But isn't that part of an overlay? Is that?
No, that's not an
That's not
overlay.
the same thing?
No, it's not an
Okay, so
overlay.
we have an overlay, we have something set aside besides that would take us through an emergency or whatever, or?
What was the amount you said was in that account?
Well, I don't know what's in total. There's $425,000 roughly that went in it on the end of 2015.
So the undesignated fund balance at the end of 2015 was at 14%. That's not even 2 months of expenditures for the community.
And that's what that money is supposed to be
Right.
used for? Okay.
That's what the unfunded balance.
Okay.
The rainy day, the state of Maine calls it the rainy day fund.
But keep in mind, before then, before we put that in there, it was at 10?
Yep.
You know, it's not gonna be any worse than it was the year before that. So, and again, you know, rainy day fund. You know, there's $3 million sitting over here in the bank next door that is in a CD, but it could be, if it was required, it could be used. So to me, that's a pretty good rainy day fund. I don't know.
So why not use part of it?
We can't use that money, the 3 million. You can only use the money that was the interest on the 3 million,
You can-
correct? Or I thought it was
Well, no,
designated only for,
Well, it's in there and the money goes now, we say it goes to the pension, but it goes into the revenue account in total, but.
so we can use, so I've been under the understanding that we couldn't use the 3 million.
No, we can't use the 3 million now, but I'm saying in an emergency, if something happened that
Oh, okay.
we had to have money, you can cancel the CD or part of it, whatever.
Okay, I get it.
But yeah, we're talking about $427,000 or $425,000. We're off here, the 1 mil is 380. If we did what Austin projected, well, the 380, if you take another 45,000 and then add on to it some additional things. And Shane, I know last meeting when we sat here, you said you had about $70,000 in the capital funds that you saw that were.
No, I didn't. I said, I thought that you could probably get 75 grand out, but I left that to him.
Oh, okay.
That was a general statement.
Oh, I thought you and Austin.
No.
You said you had discussed it before.
And he came up with the 30,000.
I mean, and you know, the difference that we would need yet, even to keep the assistant city manager, in all honesty, I can go through this tonight, just in the expense budget, and take the ones that we have now. We have more money in there than what we've spent in the last 5 years at any one time. And I mean, none of them are big numbers, but it's $1,000 here, and $2,000 there, and $1,500 there, and $500 here, and you know, if we need another $20,000, $30,000, I could find it tonight. And you still wouldn't have anything less in any of those accounts than what you spent in the last, all the numbers that are on there, the 3-year averages and the 2015. And if you're really worried about it, that we won't have enough, just look at your financial statement for October and look at what you can project, what you think might be available by the end of the year, and you don't have anything else to worry about, so.
It never stays that way. They have end of year bills. I don't know. I've been here 9 years, and what looks good in October is never the same amount
Oh, no,
in
but
December.
look right now, David, at where we're at.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some of it's gonna go, but all of it ain't going.
No.
Nowhere near.
And I don't have any problem using that money.
We'll have more there at the end of this year than we did last year, in my opinion.
So use that to reduce the additional,
Yeah,
the
if you do that,
384,000?
you're not gonna have, you won't have a mill rate increase.
Yeah, that's what, absolutely.
Exactly the
I'm
same
all
as
for
what
that.
you are.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm not against not having a mill rate increase.
How much do you predict we're gonna have at the end of the year?
It's hard to say. Honestly, I don't know. Could be $200,000, could be $100,000.
Could be $500,000.
Could be $500,000.
Right.
Probably not.
Well,
But if we want to look out a step further, and if we do have funds unexpended at the end of this year, you know, for 2018, we're looking at having to put $200,000 into a fire truck reserve. We're going to stay on that schedule. We could put $100,000 into it this year, so you keep it flat from 17 to 18. We could look at fully funding some of the other liabilities like compensated absences and those types of things, so we can reduce that slightly and just use the inflationary factor there. So long-term tax savings, not necessarily tax savings today, but over the long term, you're going to see more stable budgeting.
well, like I say, with what I see there, I mean, revenues are gonna be more than what we said again, looking at it. Expenses are gonna be substantially less than what we're saying. So, you know, if we're worried about next year, I think the money's gonna be there again. You know, and I think about other things that are gonna happen here in the future that, you know, we're not taking into consideration. We're looking at building a new school here, $40–50 million. It's a $250,000 building permit. You know, we don't get $250,000 building permits. There's $250,000 in that year that we've never been able to plan on happened before. That may very well end up going towards fire truck, I don't know, but there it is. Once they build the school, we're now in a position where I would say the school budget is gonna come down. And I would say it'll come down substantially. And I had plans myself to be at all of those meetings. So their share of the mill rate should decrease. And that may be in a year when maybe we don't have anything else somewhere. And maybe we'll have to put ours up a little bit, but still won't put the taxes up overall, so. There's always something down the road. Always happens. You know, we've had 2 big restaurants here opening up in town this year that are gonna be on the tax rolls. I don't know what the assessment is, but I have a good idea what it should be. You know, substantial amount of money in taxes.
So does this go back to the fact that coming next year, we approve an expense budget that we never, ever seem to reduce the expense? If we have more revenue, we never seem to reduce. We can't increase, and we need to do a better job.
You
of
can't
that.
increase the
Yeah,
expense.
but we can decrease it.
You can
next-
decrease
At
it.
any time next year.
Yeah.
So are you saying that we should be looking closer at that, doing that throughout the year? I mean, prior?
Not necessarily. I mean, because of
What's
the
our total
timing, I mean, if we set an expense budget in my mind that doesn't increase the mill rate in the city of Caribou,
Almost 9.6 for 2017.
then, you know,
9.6?
even if you have a little more, why would you,
Yeah, if you don't, okay,
Yeah.
I understand.
the following year, you can use it again?
Use it again.
We're budgeting within 1%. We got $100,000.
Yeah, last
Or
year,
under.
I think last year we read about 2 or 3% under
you-
the budget.
What are you referring to?
Last
Well-
year where we were from actuals to budget.
Under?
Right.
I just did the quick math. I mean, if you're $100,000 plus or minus at the end of the day on a $9.6 million budget, you're within 1%.
That is good.
You're
Last
looking
year we
at,
were about 4% under.
what are you
last
looking
year
at,
we had-
2015?
Yep. About 4% under.
$371,000. We were under budget.
If I'm looking at this year.
Oh,
The numbers we talked about, $100,000 plus or minus, and that's a guess. I know that. I know it's a
Right.
guess. Maybe it's half a
and
million.
you read this? Do you read these financial statements?
Absolutely. Do you?
Well, certainly. Well, let's read them together.
So that's about 1%. I guess that's my point there.
Our budget this year on expenses should be 8.8 million, right? So far in 10 months, we've spent 6.773, which is $673,000 a month. If we stay at that same rate, although the previous month we only spent 561, if you stayed at that same rate, that's another $1.3 million. So you add $1.3 million onto that, you're at 800 or 8 million instead of 8,814,000. I mean, we're 76.85% of the budget right now on the expense summary after 10 months. Do you know how much it is a month normally, David? We're at 76.85 right now.
It's about 7%.
But we should be at 8 point,
It should be 83 and a third.
yeah. So,
But that's a good thing.
I know it's a good thing, that's what I'm saying. It's not $100,000. Read the budget. Read the expense report.
Yeah, I think you're putting a generality to something.
I'm not putting a generality on
You
it.
are. Yeah.
Anyway,
Because expenses, they come in, like we just determined, they come at the end of the year, right?
So you're basically saying.
Yeah, I've looked at every one of them for the last 3 years that I've been here. And, in fact, Austin might be, if, I don't know if he remembers or not, but the one year, him and I had a discussion about where we were gonna be at. And his figure was actually higher than what mine was. Because I said, well, I know it looks that way, Austin, but it doesn't usually work out that way because there's some things that she pays in January for December and gets charged back to December, that when you look, it wasn't in the previous year. So it ends up that you're usually higher in the last month, yes. And
It's only costs that are actually paid for in December that get,
Yep.
or incurred in December. We don't buy things in January and shove it into last year's budget.
oh, no, not pay for, but you don't get the billing for it until January.
Right.
So
So what's your recommendation, Mayor?
My recommendation is that we take that money, that $427,000 or whatever, and put it against next year's budget.
Against the 384.
No, put the 427 against it. If you want to keep the assistant city manager or a person that can do the human resources and the code enforcement or whatever, and add him into that, I'll find the other 30 or 40,000 you need here, and it won't lower your expenses any more than what they've been in those areas for the past 5 years.
With no mill increase.
Yeah. You won't be letting anybody go.
Are we setting us up for having this exact same discussion then again next fall?
Depends on where we're at.
That's.
If my numbers are way off and we're only $100,000 under the budget, I guess we won't be having that discussion then.
But no, I mean, I'm wondering if next year, if we don't make any structural changes to the budget for 2017, and we use rollover funds or one-time funds, whatever you want to call them, to fund the gap, are we not just going to be sitting right here next year, talking about how do we bridge that gap again?
If the rollover funds are there, we won't be, no, because they'll be there to cover it.
But what about for 2018? You're talking if there's rollover funds again for 2018.
Yeah.
That's an unknown.
Yeah. Well, I would think that for 2018, we'll be able to use the ones from,
2017.
no, from 2016. We're not going to be using any of them this year, the way I've laid this out. So we'll have those funds to use in 2018.
I would caution against going below a 14% fund balance, though. I really think we need to have at least a...
I know what you're saying, Austin, but I also know that we've been below that all along. We've been below that ever since I've been here.
And it's never a good idea to be that low. Any financial auditing firm will...
And as I say, if something happens, there's $3 million sitting there. If something happened.
I just think we're banking on money that we really don't know. Maybe it's 420,000, maybe it's 300,000, maybe it's 20,000 to the bad. I mean, I can sit there and go through and, probably.
Well, you're not banking on money today that you don't know isn't there. It's there. We took the taxpayers' money last year and we put it there.
Well, you're basically saying that we're gonna have an underrun of 420,000, right?
No, we had an underrun in 2015 of 420,000. If you look at the financial statements in 2015, you would see that we had an underrun on expenses of 371,000, and we were over on the revenues of 55,000.
Okay, well, that's in the past.
Yeah,
We're talking about 2016. I thought you said we were gonna have an overrun of 420,000 in 2016.
no, I think we'll have more than that this year, in 2016. I'm not using any money from 2016, so that if we don't make that, it's not going to have any effect on it. I'm using the money from 2015 that we had over. I'm using the money from 2015 to do 2017's budget. If we have money left over from 2016, we'll use it to do 2018's budget.
What was the original whole amount was what, 480?
584.
The whole amount,
Right.
the original budget that you came up with without any changes?
The original budget was $608,000 in new taxes is what it would require.
Over, okay.
But I think we've taken some things out. And look, in all honesty, I agree with that deal on the LED lights, that $49,000. I mean, you take that out now,
Yeah.
I think we'd probably be able to justify not much in the TIF district. It would probably cost us $49,000 of the 300. You'd be looking at about 1/6. So, that sounds reasonable. And maybe it'd only be 35 or something. I don't know, but it'd be close. So you don't fund that this year, that 49,000. There's the rest of it right there. I don't even have to go through and look at all these individual accounts then. But I will if you all want me to. I don't have a problem with it.
Okay, so if we did that, what are you proposing? Are you accepting his original budget, or what?
No, because we did make some changes to the original. You know, I don't, the things he's made on this here list of taking out of all the capital improvements and that, I mean, that isn't gonna have any effect on us at all. You know, $1,000 here, $500 there, and so on. So the other things on there, the only thing I guess I'm looking at that's on there is the assistant city manager. If we have a concern that we're not gonna have the people to do these jobs here, then we shouldn't. And whether it's him or whether he decides he wants somebody else or other people, you know, it's, what, is it $89,000, Austin, or whatever? Oh, I don't think you could hire 2 people for that.
We
with the
wouldn't look to hire
benefits.
2 people.
Huh?
We wouldn't be hiring 2 people.
Okay.
Well, he's proposing not hiring anyone.
I think that's the fundamental question we need to ask ourselves. With this proposed budget is, do we want to cut, I mean, the 2 big things I see are cutting housing and taking away code enforcement and HR. Now, you're gonna shuffle those off to other people, which I don't necessarily agree with, but those are the things, that's the fundamental question of that presented budget we need to answer.
And the janitor at the rec.
But again, that's his decision. We're only looking at the money. And what I'm saying is, with the proposal I've made, you leave the $89,000 in there. And if he decides that, you know, we can do it a different way, that's what he's got to spend.
With the proposal you made saying we'd have $500,000, we wouldn't have to cut anything out of the budget.
No, well, with the proposal I made, I said 425,000.
I thought you said we'd have about
300
$500,000.
Look at 2015, $371,000 in expenses that were appropriated by taxes that we didn't
So
use.
you're back to the using 2015 funds.
Yeah, I'm
the
not
fund
looking at
balance.
using 2016 funds. Everybody's talking about, well, what about next year? And I'm just saying, 2016, there's probably gonna be $500,000 between revenue and expenses that is gonna be left over. So am I worried about next year? No, not right now.
So then would you be in favor of the budget presented October 14th then, with the few small changes of health insurance and those things? I guess I'm trying to figure out where you're at.
I guess if we can get it, use what I'm talking about, 371, 50, I think it's 55 on the revenue, Austin, but you'd have to look, make sure, but I don't want to take any more out of that fund than what we have done in 2015. But take those 2 items, take what you have in this capital deal here off, which was what,
30,300.
30,000.
Hit you back.
The lights.
And the lights, 49,000. So you got
80,000.
about 500,000. So what do you need to take off? I mean, the 500,000, does that put you where we were? Less? It probably does.
Yeah.
Probably awful close.
I'd have to look at the numbers, I guess.
And again, I'm not here tonight to approve the budget. We haven't even had a public hearing yet. I mean, Jesus, we may have somebody out there that's got some great ideas about what we can do in addition to what we're talking about. Simplest way, Austin, I guess, is to take the 30,000 out and 49 off your original budget. And how much does that mean that you'd have to go up?
$500,000.
And then we're
Roughly.
talking, and we're talking 420 here.
429
Yeah, whatever, 426, whatever.
or 26.
So we're looking at roughly 100,000.
So not 85 of that's the manager position, so now you're down, Blair, look at it, you're down to 15. If you do it
Well,
that way.
or you've got the housing deal. which is proposed in here that we haven't said one way or another. I mean, again, we don't have to decide tonight. We would just, maybe we gotta crunch these numbers again.
Yeah, no, and I agree too. Well, I'm just trying to wrap my head around that. But back to your point about Austin, that's Austin's job. I mean, reducing services. Did you say in that statement that is
No, I'm
his?
saying Austin's job is to decide whether he wants the assistant manager or he wants to do away with him and hire somebody else for human resources.
Yeah, but I think he did, and what that means is reduction in services.
Oh.
Right?
But again, is that not his decision? How he's gonna do that? I thought it was.
I don't. That's,
You're gonna tell him what he has to do to maintain services?
no, I think he's looking from direction from us.
If council is amenable, if they're okay with seeing reductions in services, that's the big question.
I wouldn't want to see any. If
You,
could get
you,
by.
you can still get income from housing and not reduce hours, right?
It would be
That could be
a bit
part,
less.
yeah, but that could still be part of your,
Yeah.
getting that 75,000. Now, the 75,000 we're talking about doesn't include the 14,000 that you took out for,
75,000. Okay.
you know what I mean?
Yep.
The other stuff you had cut before the last meeting.
Right. So, with the budget presented November 1st, that one would have been approximately $580,000 in new taxes. So if we're taking $426,000 from fund balance to offset taxes in 2017,
426. Yeah,
that would leave us with approximately 154,000.
154, yeah.
Then you had the savings that you brought to us in that budget.
So then we take the
14, then you can talk to 49 there.
30 and the 49. So that's 79.
And then add the rent for housing,
71,000.
and then your 30,000 in capital gains, I mean, not capital gains, but CIP.
No, didn't we already add that into the 40,000, the 50,000?
Yeah, well, back to the original money. So I think it's there.
I think it is too,
that's
already.
close.
In fact, I know it is because
I don't think that's enough money to worry about.
go back
Yeah, just-
further than that.
Just sleep on that and.
We
put it
needed
together with fresh-
$385,000 today when we come in here, right? Isn't that what we
With the
needed?
with the proposed cuts.
Yeah, with the mill rate going up one, it was $385,000. There's 426 of what I've talked about there, so there's $41,000 above that. So you could use that $41,000 to reinstate something that you had taken out already. An example, the assistant city manager. And then we got the 49 on top of that. So that would bring that up to 90,000. Well, that's the assistant city manager's out of the thing right now. And then we had the 30,000, no, you included the 30,000 in your cuts already. But yeah, you would still have the assistant city manager or replacements of whatever you thought you needed as far as people.
Set the budget at that. That doesn't mean that by June, we aren't gonna have enough money in the revenues to even offset that. And we don't set the mill rate until June. We may not have to, it's minuscule at best.
So my only two concerns is that utilizing the funds, 426,000 that we put into fund balance at the end of 2015, we're going to perpetually be at about a 10% fund balance, which is well below where we really should be, where any community should be. And then next year we're going to be having this exact same conversation if we're using $429,000
And the year
from fund
after,
balance.
and the year after, and the year after, and the year after.
That's why I said on this.
And if it goes every year that we don't have a tax increase, is that wrong?
It's about services too.
We're not changing the
We're not
services. If we're funding these people now, why would we will still be funding them next year? Right?
Sure.
That isn't gonna make a big difference, so.
Well, and there may come a year when we have to have an increase, but, oh my.
But the 200,
Inevitable.
280,000, I said,
Which,
anything that goes against
anything savings we see, I think should go to 384. We should still cut to 206,000, because if every year it goes up $500,000 and we don't try to reduce expenses, we just figure out a way to fund $500,000 every year.
Well, you've got the homestead exemption also
Yeah.
being raised
It's gonna
this
go up every year.
So you're gonna see a decrease in that.
Right, no, I mean, even, no matter what, people are not gonna be paying more in property taxes in 2017 than they were in
But
2020.
But we're not reducing
for the
expenses.
last 6 years, the state has been sending, cut revenue sharing, increase this, school department now is paying the pension. They've sent all these costs in and the tax, so it's okay if the property taxes go down, because they still won't be lower than they were 6 years ago or 5 years ago.
I'm glad somebody else on the council isn't worried about them going down.
But I think you're there.
Yeah, you too.
You might not like where you're there or how you're there, but
As long as we're not impacting services, that's the big thing. And not neglecting our roads and infrastructure and CIPs.
it's all in there.
And I don't think we're doing that the way this is right now. I mean, we're basically doing everything that's asked for in here.
We might be able to get a budget that Phil would approve.
Yeah.
Well,
Didn't I approve one here not too long ago? Last
You
year or the
approved
year
the mill
before?
rate.
Huh?
You approved a mill rate.
So if I did
It
that,
was
I guess.
unanimous, I was shocked.
You actually even talked about a half a
Yeah,
mil.
you did.
So if you would have settled for half a mil,
You
I'm
should
sure
be
you'd
happy.
settle for the same mill rate.
You should be happy with
Oh,
that
absolutely.
proposal.
Are we all done discussing that?
I don't know. I am.
Well, I've been sitting here, and I've had this piece of paper with me, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks now. And I just thought that, the opportunity may arise. And I think it's here tonight. And as I sit here and I listen to some of us question what we can do with capital improvements, what we can do with reserve funds, or what's this and what's that, I'm just gonna give you the lowdown so you all know what we should be doing. And it's not that long, and I don't read well, so bear with me. The establishment of your municipality may establish a reserve fund consisting of one or more accounts by appropriating or authorizing the transfer of unencumbered surplus funds at the end of any fiscal year for the following purposes. 1. Capital improvement account, financing the acquisition or reconstruction of specific or a type of capital improvement. So buying a building or repairing buildings, repairing infrastructure. Capital equipment account, financing the acquisition of specific items or type of capital equipment. Fire trucks, big stuff, okay? Not everyday occurring stuff. Credit reserve account, rainy day account, undesignated fund account. Providing a reserve which may be applied in periods of financial emergency to assist in continuing its normal operation without increasing the tax rate. The annual appropriation for this may not exceed 5% of the current tax commitment. When the municipal legislative body determines that a financial emergency exists, it may order the withdrawal of the necessary amount from the account. And then it talks about a sinking fund account, but right now we don't have any debt, so I don't think we have to go into that. So, in essence, we should be setting a cap for our rainy day fund and keep the other accounts separate because they have an identity. Am I not wrong?
Are you calling the undesignated fund balance the rainy day account?
Yep. But, because that's what it says up, unencumbered surplus, so if you're gonna roll that over to be,
Didn't it specifically state undesignated fund balance?
no, but you.
I thought you read those words, I guess.
No, I didn't read, I
Rainy
read
day.
unencumbered up in the top in the introduction or the establishment of it, but I didn't read any undesignated. It says, credit reserve account, providing reserve which may be applied in periods of financial emergency and assisting to continue its normal operations without increasing the tax rate. Those are the types of accounts that by law you're allowed to establish. And if we're gonna discuss this, and I don't disagree with what you're saying, then we need to determine and put it into policy just exactly what that rainy day account is gonna be and try and maintain it.
Well,
Okay?
that was one of the items that you had on that budget anyway. You said that we should adopt a policy,
Yep.
you know, for something like that, and that's something that we can do, you know, in the next year.
And I got one more that I didn't bring the definition, but I probably could pretty much do it right here, and that is the overlay. And the overlay is put into the budget for assessing purposes, if I'm not wrong. So that and I think there's a cap of like 5% on that too, okay? So you've got different reserve elements out there that if you don't pay any attention to what the names are and what the purpose of them is, you can just think it's all in one pot, and it's not necessarily all in one pot. So that's all I wanted to say.
Anything else? Does everyone agree that we'll
Getting closer.
do this and not have a mill rate increase?
I'm all for no tax increase. Like Mr. Martin said, I could approve that. Could.
If we can do it that way and not change the services, yeah.
I'll go for no mill increase. I just disagree with some of the services that are involved, but I'm all for no mill increase.
All right. We're meeting Monday night?
5 o'clock?
That's not the hearing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that the public hearing Monday
Public
night?
hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And I read in the paper, workshop with,
Right, this is the other thing on the agenda for tonight. I emailed the council last week. The Broadband Coalition's asked if they can meet in a workshop on the 28th to discuss broadband with the council. If the council's interested in doing that or not, I don't know. That's why we're bringing it up here tonight.
is this to listen to the proposal to spend the money from,
Right, and we could certainly have
Tilson?
Tilson be on do a conference call with us and talk about it as well.
I have no interest in talking to Tilson. I mean, you know what their proposal is. I know what their proposal was, what they were gonna do and what it was gonna cost. I have no
proposal
problem
was to
meeting
look
with the broadband council to discuss what we should be doing next. But, you know,
The
we,
proposal was to look at all options for increasing municipal broadband, or
Yeah.
broadband throughout the municipality.
but we already chose not to fund the proposal, so why would we wanna listen to it?
If the council doesn't want to meet with them to talk about it, that's fine. I'm just asking.
Yeah, I mean,
It's an important issue that I think deserves a second chance. I think there was a
I
lot
have-
of.
I have no problem listening to talk
hold
about
on,
broadband.
hold on. I think there was a lot of issues that were brought up by council that weren't necessarily addressed when we talked about it. And I think that's, what I think the broadband council would like to do is to address those issues. And, because I don't think it was clear. It really, in my mind, it wasn't clear because of how each council person voted for it and what they expressed.
Well, like I said, I don't have any problem meeting with the coalition to discuss it again. I don't want to listen to the proposal when, I mean, you know what the proposal is. He knows what the proposal is. I'm taking everybody on your committee knows what the proposal is. So why can't we sit down and talk with the coalition on what they think and what we should be doing next? I don't have a problem doing that.
And I think the intent of the coalition is to ask the council to reconsider their previous position and to do the study next year.
So that's why we should be sitting down with the coalition and talking
Yep.
to you more than Tilson. I mean, that's not gonna help. But if we listen to the coalition's
Yeah, I don't have any problem
views
sitting down, and listening to the coalition and
and hash
discussing
that
with them
out.
about what the next step should be, or is there other alternatives or whatever. I don't have a problem doing that, but I don't need to listen to the proposal from Tilson.
Right, no, that was brought up as they might be able to answer some of the other questions the council might have. But if the council's not interested in that, that's certainly.
No, but if
fine.
they want to meet, if the coalition wants to meet with council, I don't have a problem with that. No,
So we'll set that for 5 o'clock on the 28th.
yeah,
I thought it was tonight, but
Anything else?
Well, it was on the.
Good thing it
was on
wasn't
the
you weren't
agenda,
here
it
at
was
5
It was on
o'clock.
the agenda.
No, I thought it was.
No, that's why it
after.
was on the agenda to have this conversation.
Yeah,
No, it was on the agenda. I thought it was gonna be.
me too.
I'm glad it isn't.
So we start at 5 PM then.
Right, so we'll start at 5 o'clock on the 14th and the
I mean, 14th.
And the
that's-
hearing
Okay.
is with the
Our
public.
next meeting, we have to meet at 5 too, don't we?
Yeah, both, that's what I just said. On
Yeah,
the
I'll
14th
make
and
it.
28th, we'll meet at 5 o'clock.
That's Monday.
So the public hearing is Monday for the budget.
Yeah.
Public hearing is Monday evening, yeah.
All right. Anything else for tonight?
Time to adjourn.
I guess. All right, thank you very much.